Before the beaches of Normandy changed the war, before Allied ships crossed the English Channel, and before Hitler's generals waited in the wrong place for an invasion that would never come, there was one man sitting behind a desk, writing lies. His name was Juan Pujol García. He was not a famous general. He did not command tanks. He did not lead soldiers into battle. He did not fire the shot that changed history. Instead, he built an army that did not exist. An army made of names, letters, reports, false agents, secret codes, and imagination so convincing that Nazi intelligence believed it was real. The British called him Garbo because he was like the greatest actor in the world. The Germans trusted him, and that trust would help change World War II. Juan Pujol García was born in Barcelona in 1912. He lived through the violence and fear of the Spanish Civil War, and that experience shaped him deeply. He came to hate political extremism, whether it came from the far right or the far left. When World War II began, he believed Nazi Germany had to be stopped. But Pujol was not a trained spy. He had no official intelligence background. He had no powerful friends inside the British government. He had no army behind him. What he had was imagination, patience, courage, and a strange talent for making fiction sound like truth. In 1941, he tried to offer his services to Britain. The British embassy in Madrid rejected him more than once. Most people would have stopped there. Pujol did not. If Britain would not accept him as a spy, he would first convince Germany that he was one. Pujol knocked on Britain's door again and again. He wanted to help the Allies. He wanted to fight Hitler, but to British intelligence, he looked like a risk. A civilian from Spain, no training, no proven network, no clear access to German secrets. So, they refused him. But rejection did not destroy his plan. It sharpened it. Pujol began thinking like a spy before anyone officially called him one. He understood that trust was the real battlefield. If he could not walk into British intelligence as a useful agent, he would create values so obvious they could no longer ignore him. So he turned toward the Germans. He created the image of a loyal pro-Nazi Spanish official who could supposedly travel to Britain and gather intelligence. It was a lie, but it was the first brick in the greatest deception of his life. The Germans believed him. They accepted Pujol as an agent and gave him instructions, money, invisible ink, and secret writing methods. They expected him to travel to Britain and send reports back to them. But Pujol had a problem. He had never actually been to Britain, so he moved to Lisbon and began creating reports from public sources: newspapers, tourist guides, train timetables, advertisements, and imagination. He invented details. He invented contacts. He invented excuses when something was wrong, and somehow the reports worked. To German intelligence, Pujol sounded like a man with access. To British codebreakers and counterintelligence, his false reports were strange enough to cause alarm. At first, they did not know who he was. They only knew someone was feeding Germany information about Britain. The rejected volunteer had now become impossible to ignore. Pujol knew one man alone could not explain everything. So he invented a network, not one fake agent, not two, an entire web of imaginary informants. Each fictional agent had a role, a location, a personality, and a reason for knowing certain things. Some were placed near ports, others near military bases, others inside ordinary civilian life. If one report was wrong, Pujol could blame a fake agent. If one message was late, he could invent a delay. If Germany asked for more information, he could create another source. The lie became stronger because it had structure. Eventually, the Germans believed they were funding a network of 27 agents working for Pujol. But they were all fictional. He had created a ghost army, and the Nazis paid for it. At last, British intelligence realized that the mysterious source misleading the Germans could become extremely valuable. Pujol was brought into the British system and moved to Britain in 1942. There, he worked with MI5 under the double cross system, which controlled German agents in Britain and turned them into tools of deception. His main handler was Thomas Harris, a fluent Spanish speaker who helped Pujol develop his fake network into a masterpiece of controlled misinformation. The British gave him the codename Garbo, inspired by the film star Greta Garbo, because Pujol was considered an extraordinary actor in the world of espionage. Now, the lie had professional support. Pujol was no longer improvising from Lisbon. He was sitting in Britain, protected by MI5, sending carefully designed false intelligence to Germany. The rejected man had become one of Britain's most valuable weapons. World War II was not fought only with tanks and bombs. It was also fought with signals, secrets, maps, rumors, and lies. By 1943, the Allies were preparing for the greatest amphibious invasion in history, the return to Western Europe. The real landing would come in Normandy, but the Germans could not be allowed to know that. If Germany moved enough forces to Normandy before the invasion, the beaches could become a slaughterhouse. So, the Allies needed deception on a massive scale. This deception became part of Operation Bodyguard, with Operation Fortitude designed to mislead Germany about where the invasion would happen. Fortitude South aimed to convince German command that the main landing would happen at Pas-de-Calais, the shortest crossing from England to France, and Agent Garbo would become one of the most important voices in the lie. To make the lie believable, the Allies created a phantom invasion force: fake tanks, fake radio traffic, fake camps, fake landing craft, fake movement. They even built the illusion of a powerful army in southeast England under General George Patton, whom the Germans respected and feared. The goal was simple: convince Hitler that Normandy was only a distraction, and that the real attack would come later at Pas-de-Calais. Garbo's fake spy network supported this illusion. His imaginary agents reported troop movements, preparations, rumors, and military activity that pointed toward the wrong place. Because the Germans trusted him, his words carried weight. This was the genius of the plan. Germany was not fooled by one lie. It was surrounded by many lies, all pointing in the same direction. The night of June 5th to June 6th, 1944, was one of the most dangerous nights in modern history. Across the English Channel, thousands of Allied ships and aircraft prepared to move toward Normandy. Soldiers waited in darkness, sick with fear and hope. Many knew they might never return. Garbo had one of his most delicate tasks. To keep his credibility, he needed to warn the Germans about the real Normandy landing, but too late for them to respond effectively. This was carefully arranged so the Germans would still trust him after the invasion began. It was a terrifying balance. If he warned them too early, he could endanger the entire invasion. If he warned them too late without explanation, he could lose German trust. If the deception failed, thousands more could die. So, while soldiers loaded rifles and climbed into landing craft, Garbo prepared the message that had to arrive at exactly the wrong time. At dawn on June 6, 1944, the sea exploded with history. Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy. Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, Sword. The invasion had begun, but in German command rooms, confusion remained. Was Normandy the real invasion, or was it only a diversion before the true blow at Pas-de-Calais? Garbo's reports helped strengthen the belief that the main attack was still coming elsewhere. His fake agents continued to feed the Germans a carefully constructed story. The real invasion force had not yet been used. This mattered enormously, because as long as Germany hesitated, as long as troops were held back, as long as commanders feared the wrong attack, the Allies gained precious time on the beaches. Garbo did not storm Normandy, but his lies fought there. The success of deception did not end on D-Day. That was the most important part. Even after the Normandy landings began, the Germans continued to believe that a larger Allied attack might still come at Pas-de-Calais. Operation Fortitude helped keep German forces positioned away from the real battle area, weakening the German response to Normandy. Garbo's credibility was crucial. He had spent years earning German trust. Now that trust trapped them. The Germans did not think, Garbo lied. They thought, Garbo is warning us that the real danger is still ahead. This was the power of long deception. A lie told at the last second is suspicious. A lie built patiently over years can become a prison for the mind, and Germany had walked into it. One of the strangest facts in espionage history is that Juan Pujol García was honored by both sides of the war. The Germans believed he was their loyal agent. For his supposed service, he was awarded the Iron Cross. The British knew the truth. For his real service to the Allied cause, he was later made a member of the Order of the British Empire. Think about that. The same man was rewarded by the enemy he deceived, and by the country he helped save. To Germany, he was a hero of intelligence. To Britain, he was one of the greatest double agents of the war. To history, he became proof that sometimes the most powerful battlefield is the one no one sees. Garbo had not simply fooled a few officers, he had fooled an intelligence system. After the war, Pujol knew his life could still be in danger. If surviving Nazis discovered the truth, revenge was possible. So, with help from British intelligence, he disappeared. He reportedly faked his death from malaria in 1949 and moved to Venezuela, where he lived quietly for decades. The man who had invented 27 fake agents now invented one final story for himself: that Juan Pujol García was dead. For years, the world did not know where Agent Garbo had gone. He became a ghost outside the war he had helped shape. No parade followed him, no army marched behind him, no crowd shouted his name. He had helped deceive Hitler, then vanished into ordinary life. For a spy, perhaps that was the perfect ending, or at least it seemed to be. For decades, Agent Garbo remained hidden. Then, in the 1980s, his identity was uncovered by writer and intelligence historian Nigel West. Pujol's story returned from the shadows, and the world finally began to understand the scale of what he had done. Imagine being told that a quiet man living far from Europe had once helped shape D-Day, that behind an ordinary face was one of the greatest acts of deception in modern history. Pujol was brought back into public memory. He visited Normandy and was honored for his role in the Allied victory. But the most powerful part of his story is not fame. It is the fact that he did what he did without expecting glory. He was not trying to become a legend. He was trying to stop a monster. Juan Pujol García died in 1988. But his story remains one of the most extraordinary examples of deception used against tyranny. He did not destroy Hitler with bullets. He did not command an army. He did not sit at the table of presidents and prime ministers. He wrote, he imagined. He lied with discipline, courage, and purpose. And because the Germans believed him, Allied soldiers had a better chance to survive the beaches of Normandy. Because they trusted his fake network, German forces hesitated. Because one man understood the power of fiction, reality changed. That is why Agent Garbo's story still matters. Sometimes history is changed by the loudest explosion, and sometimes it is changed by a quiet man in a hidden room writing the perfect lie.